G'day guys and girls, welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for your patience. It was basically a combination of a few things, a combination of a bit of traffic on the way down. I'm here in the snowfields, that's hence why the delay, and then some problems setting up. But welcome and thanks for joining us. You know what? Let's just jump in because I'm really excited about this webinar today, in particular because the guy I'm running it with, Geoff, if you know him, if you've spoken to him about what he does, he's incredibly passionate about what he does. One of my favorite sort of Geoff moments recently was when there's a bit of a post on LinkedIn. We were chatting to one of the guys at a major online sort of robo-advice thing who's putting forward some views, which, you know what, he's perfectly entitled to. But at the same time, I think in many ways sort of didn't recognize the fact that advice just isn't about one thing. And Geoff just came in and started talking really from the heart about the kind of clients he helps and the people, you know, that are I guess the core of what he does. And I really want to dive into this with him today. So we've got a couple of questions lined up. Hopefully, I know we were starting really, really late. So my feeling is we may end up picking up some people along the way. We're live on Facebook as we speak, but let's get this going. And by the way, Shane, I've got your questions ready to go, but man, let's just jump in and get this going. So Geoff, let's turn your speaker on. Dude, are you there, Geoff?
Hey Stu, how are you, mate?
Mate, I'm pretty good. I'm a bit flustered.
Yes.
It's certainly not gone according to plan, but it's funny that, what do they say? It's how you deal with things when they don't go according to plan that matters.
Very much so.
Hey man, thanks for joining me today.
No, it's my pleasure.
We've we go back quite some time, right?
Yeah, a bit of time.
You were kind of like one of the very first, well, you were one of the founders. I remember back when we launched the program and it was three of us in a room all looking around going, there's only three of us here.
This is it.
It's been a while, and I've been looking forward to sort of jumping into this because you've got quite a story.
Yeah, well, I think I have, but you know, others may not. But we'll see how we go.
Cool. So, I really want to get into the aged care stuff, and we've got some great questions that have come through, which I'm going to pull up along the way and pop them out. Yep. But I'd like to sort of start by, for those who don't know you, don't know your background, don't know much about you, just give them a bit of information about, you know, your business, who you help, who you work with, and you in general.
Okay, I started in the financial services business straight out of school. I worked for the NRMA in an insurance role, you know, basically a claims and then into a counter hopper, as we call them. And from there, I moved into the financial services sector with NRMA. We had, back in the early 90s, effectively an insurance bond, a deferred annuity, and a superannuation bond, and that's all that we had to offer to people. They then trained me as a financial planner, and I have progressed since then. Worked for them for a few years till they took the move to change their model, and I didn't agree with the change that they wanted to make, so I found time to move out. Worked for an accountant for 6 months. That was an interesting time.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I worked for an accountant for 6 months. It taught me one really... Sorry, yeah, as the planner in the office. Taught me one really good thing, which was I really don't think I could work in an accounting office again. It's just not me. Then I joined the guys at Dome. I was an employee at it actually was called Kerr and Money Insurance Brokers. All right. They wanted to extend their they were the two fellas that wrote mainly risk insurance business, and they wanted to add financial planning to their arm. So their practice development manager knew me from NRMA days and hunted me down. And I'd actually talked myself out of the accounting office job. So I was between jobs when they found me, and I said, yeah, I'm happy to join on the ridiculously low wage that they paid. And yeah.
So I want to ask a question on the accounting thing, because you see a lot of businesses where the accounting firm has brought in a financial planning arm. And I kind of talk it. There's two ways financial accountants can approach it. They approach it actually as a you know, a forward-thinking move, but a lot of them approach it as a defensive move. It's like, well, you know, if someone asks for a planner, we've got one, but otherwise we'll just won't bother with it. Yeah. Like, what's your advice for somebody who potentially has one of those relationships or is wondering if they're in one, from your experiences?
Well, it was only a very brief time, and it was more to do with just my personality and the way that an accounting office, and this may not apply to all accounting offices, but the accounting offices that I've been to are very quiet places. And I'm not a real quiet person. So my voice would reverberate around the office when I answer the telephone,
Yeah.
and things like that. But I would have to say that if anybody's going to, if you're an accountant who wants to add financial planning as a service, it needs to be part of your business.
Right.
It can't be just an add-on because you think that, people might want it. It's got to really be a part of your business.
Gotcha. So you joined Dome, which was a different
Joined Dome, yeah, as an employee. I then became a shareholder of Dome. I eventually, myself and my previous business partner bought out the third shareholder.
Yeah.
And then my business partner came to me back in 2013 and said he'd like to take some cash off the table.
Okay.
And wanted to know if we wanted to sell, and I said I was happy to sell, but we couldn't actually find somebody that we wanted to buy us.
Okay.
Because the people that we spoke to, I just think wasn't a real good fit for either of us.
Yeah.
And so I asked him. I said, "Look, the bank will only lend me so much. Will you vendor fund me into the ownership?" And he said, "Yeah,
Wow.
no problems." So, and I thankfully paid him off last year.
Excellent.
He's still one of my best mates, and he still does some work for me from time to time.
Yeah.
But yeah, from there it's just been I've been running the show, and we've got a what the old term was an aggregated business. So we've got businesses inside a business.
Okay.
So Dome Financial Group has 3 offices and 4 businesses that are attached to it.
So Dome has always to me seemed so much your business.
Yeah.
It surprises me to think that there was a time that it wasn't. So talk me through that period when you made it yours. What changed? What did you deliberately change, and what changed by accident?
Not a lot has changed since I've taken it over. I suppose really the focus that I have is a retirement focus. I like to deal, and I say it out loud, I like to deal with people over the age of 55.
Yeah.
That's my preference. We still have a multifaceted business, so we still deal with people across different generation sectors.
Yeah.
But my focus is purely on retirement when it can be.
And can you just help me understand? Obviously, there's a lot of planners out there who might have an area they love, and they might be drawn back into dealing with other areas or still in that wide niche. You must have had an experience of knowing what you want, but also I know you've got a big business, you've got multiple offices. What's your advice to somebody, if they know what they want to do, but they're not necessarily working in that space?
I think it's first the realization. So you've got to realize what it is that you want to do. Once you're there, is study up, know what you need to know. Get yourself qualified if that's the case, but also look at the offer that you've got, and bring people in. I've brought people in. I've got another advisor in my business, and she deals with that generations that I don't, have a preference to deal with.
So give people who don't know like the full picture of the business, because it's actually a pretty big business, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a business with 6 advisors in it. Myself as the principal, as I said, I've got another business where that I actually own a part of that business. I'm a joint venture holder. Mm-hmm. We have another office where the guy who runs that is him and another advisor. They're independently owned, but they're part of Dome Financial Group. Right. So I am responsible for his advice, but he runs his business the way that he wants to run his business.
Okay.
From there. And I've also got an advisor in my office at the moment who runs his own base from there. Okay. Now, we run very, very similar. We are bringing more and more in line with having a corporate type environment.
Yeah.
And, that'll refine itself over time more and more. But at the end of the day, we have an agreement that's quite easy to separate for both parties, and we've kept it that way. We've never seen the need to use it. We've never used it.
Yeah.
But that was the thing from when Dome really started back in 2002. We've kept it fairly much the same. Probably 2006 was when we really started the aggregated format.
Gotcha. So I want to ask two questions which are kind of written up here because I want to get onto the aged care, but I think, whenever I speak to a business where you've got multiple offices, big team, and independently minded people, there's obviously so many lessons you learn along the way, right?
Yep.
So what are your tips for when you get to that point where people become a really important part of it? What are your tips for hiring to start with? What are your suggestions to someone who's starting to get to that point where the people are becoming increasingly something you need more of?
Nothing genius. Hire skills.
Okay.
The thing is to just hire skills, hire people who can do the job. I personally am a fan of hiring older staff members. So we've had young staff members in, and we found them not to work for us as well as we'd like. So we tend to hire. I like return to work mums in my office. I've got a lot of part-time staff, so I have staff that work 3 days or 4 days a week because it suits them, and they're great at their jobs, and therefore I'd rather have somebody here for 3 days a week that's excellent at their job than 5 days a week when they're not as good.
Yeah, look, it's funny. There's a lot of I don't know if it's the last 10 years, but everyone was on this thing about hiring for values.
Yeah,
I agree to a point, but I think for me the first hurdle is, do they have some semblance of skills? It doesn't have to be exact software, but it's got to be some indication that they've done this work before.
Yeah,
and also if they've got a bit of life experience under their bonnet. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, they're the two things. So and hiring there, and from an advisor point of view, I think it's you've got to eventually take some trust in your instincts, and if you think somebody's going to work out, you've got to give them a go. And I've been lucky in that regard. I've only hired the one advisor at this stage, but I've actually two. The first one I'm now in business with, and the second one is now helping me, and she will eventually form part of our business as well.
That's awesome. So we're going to ask you, we've got some great questions from Shane. Shane will line this up in a second. First, one more question on staffing, and then we'll move on to the aged care, because I know that's what we want to talk about.
Yep.
When you get to a point as a business where you have to add advisors to the offer,
yep.
What's your best advice to people who are there or heading there?
Do it as long as you can, because I believe nobody does it as well as you.
So in other words, don't
rush into it. Don't think that you've got. I see a lot of business people who think that because they've got a business, they now need to be an employer.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of do as much as you can before you've got to employ somebody. But when the time comes to employ them, as the saying goes, if they can do it 80% as well as you can, then let them do it.
Yeah, and they're going to stuff it up, right?
Yeah, and you've got to you'll work with them and teach them. I'm a big one for my background before I got into financial services was training, and I'm a big one for asking the questions. So when somebody says, Geoff, how do I do this? I say, how would you like to do it? Or how do you think you'd do it?
Yeah.
And let them answer it and see how they go.
I said I was going to ask one more question. I'm going to ask one more and we'll get into aged care. Geoff, you're a top level referee.
I wouldn't say top level.
Well, I'm going to say top level on your behalf. What have you learned from refereeing that's done you well in business, and what have you taken from business that's helped you as a referee?
From refereeing, I live by the adage that you're never going to please everybody. Yeah. And I think I've taken that across into business as well, is to accept that sometimes you just don't connect with people, and that's all that there's no ifs or buts about it. From business into refereeing, I suppose it's an understanding of people, and an understanding that you are coming across a different range of people all the time.
Yeah.
And whilst the rules in rugby league are the same for all, anybody that's been involved in the game knows that there are different people in there. So
yeah, and I guess the other thing is it would teach you to be able to deal with people the right way when they're emotionally in a certain situation.
It can help.
Yeah, because I've noticed that a lot of referees are very good at recognizing when they need to put the foot down and when maybe another approach is useful.
Yep.
Are you an authoritarian, or are you more of a, sort of get in there and calm down side by side?
There are two ways that you can look at it. One is there are the rules of the game, and there are the way that I interpret them, and therefore, no, I'm an authoritarian. It's
nice.
It's my game.
Shane, your first question. And by the way, who else we got on the line? We have James. Welcome, man. We're Elizabeth Carolyn. Please feel free to jump in, ask questions. We're going to jump into, we've so far been talking about the sort of journey of Dome, acquisition, changing, the growth. We've talked a bit about staffing, but man, let's dive into aged care. The first question Shane had, which isn't aged care related, he wants to know a little bit about, there you go. Shane says his dad was a rugby league ref, so he likes you straight away. Do you run under your own license, Geoff?
No, we're licensed by Financial Wisdom. So we chose that direction back in 2006.
Okay.
And at this stage, we will continue that until there is a better offer.
Yep. Perfect. So let's talk about the aged care thing. I want to know, when was the first time you became really interested in helping people with this in this particular area of advice? Because it's a very specific type of advice, right?
Yeah, back in 2011, Colonial First State hired a woman named Rachel Lane.
Yeah.
And they did that on the basis of rolling out an aged care advice proposition.
Yep.
Because I had a lot of experience in the retirement planning sector, I said, yeah, look, this is just a simple add-on for me. So I'd be quite happy to do it. I clicked with Rachel really well. I really respect her. She is the guru. She now runs a business called Aged Care Gurus.
Elaine.
Rachel Lane, yeah. And she, without doubt, is the person that she's my mentor. She's the person that I rely on as a lot for my aged care input.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found it really easy because I had such a good knowledge of the Centrelink rules and a good knowledge of the retirement aspects. It really clicked. And I can still remember that first course. It was a 3-day course that we had to do.
Yeah.
And watching some of the guys in the room that were, without being derogatory, they were lifeies. And they were there for whatever reason they were there. And they just couldn't get it. You could see them, the connection wasn't there.
Okay.
And one of the things that I found with aged care is if you don't have a reasonable knowledge of the Centrelink system, you're going to struggle.
Okay. So what is it specifically about the work that you love? I mean, obviously a mentor helps. Is it the complexity? Is it the outcome?
Yeah, it's the complexity of it. It's the fact that it really is I like to help people, and I find it really satisfying to be able to take the worry away from people because it's a stressful time. It's a very stressful time for families. It's a stressful time sometimes for the people going in. Most people will tell you they don't want to go into aged care.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if we all live long enough, there's a large possibility we're going to need to go into it in some form.
It's funny. One of my family members, or extended family members, he lost his wife last year, and recently he's had some problems sort of with his health. And going through this process has made me realize it's one of those things in life where if we all had the Hollywood ending, there's a great ending and it all works well. But the truth is, there's a lot of grey in this.
Yeah.
And there's what you want to do and what you should do, and what feels good and what's the right thing to do. And sometimes they're not always on the same page, right?
No. Very, very much. And really with aged care, you're dealing a lot with emotions. You're dealing with couples who live by their marriage vow till death do us part. But that's not going to be the case because one of them needs to can't be cared for at home any longer. So there's a lot of stress there. There's families, where mum has always said, I don't ever want to go into aged care. And the family's sort of sitting around the table saying, we need to do it.
Yeah. For those who, I'm assuming there's a few people who get it, but let's say you're watching it later and they're going, well, what do you do? What's the specifics of, how it works, the process, or what's the specific activities that most commonly you look at?
We look at really the way that we can help somebody. So we effectively have 2 service offers, one being the advice and one being the assistance. And when I say the assistance, it can be things such as, dealing with the Centrelink aspects of it, dealing with the facilities, and clarifying information and helping them read through the residential care agreement.
Okay.
Being able to assist them in that regard. So, sometimes people just want advice, and sometimes they want to hand it over. And we have a service offer that does both.
Okay. And what, in your experience, has been the main ways that giving advice in this area differs from what most people would know as the scope of standard advice? What are the main differences?
Probably the main difference is that it is that it's reasonably specific in what you're doing. Sometimes you're dealing, and we very rarely deal with investment advice in aged care. And especially not when they've already got an advisor, for example. So, we've had people come in where they've had, hundreds of thousands of dollars in different investment related things.
Yeah.
We say to them, do you want advice on that, or do you want to retain that, where it is? And a lot of them will say, look, we're happy with what it's happening, or mum's happy with what's been going on.
Yeah.
And I say, fine, we're going to scope that out of our advice. We're going to deal specifically with how that is going to impact on your aged care.
Gotcha. And is it just dealing with one sort of generation too? I mean, what's the scope of the people you're actually dealing with? Is it usually...
we deal with usually the children of the person going into advice.
Yeah.
But it may actually be grandchildren. We've got one lady that's effectively got power of attorney for her grandparents.
Right.
And we've been dealing with her from day one when she started needing the aged care advice situation.
Beautiful. So let's, Shane's asked some great questions. I'm going to dive into them. What's your prospecting approach? Like, how and where do you find opportunities to work with people in this space?
We try and have a relationship with facilities. So we will try and get out to facilities. I actually hired an aged care business development manager.
Okay.
Because I didn't have the actual physical time to be out and about and effectively having a relationship with the people that are talking to the families that are coming in.
Okay.
We do some training sessions. We'll go and do training sessions with aged care staff on the financial aspects of aged care.
Yeah.
And how different things will impact on them. Earlier this year, we ran 4 different training sessions. I think we had something like about 58 staff across 4 sessions. To just update them in what's happened, what's changing, just to refresh their knowledge of what does it all mean. And mainly aged care facilities.
So making contact, getting a good relationship, going and presenting, what sort of things, obviously to get 54 people to turn up, there's obviously there's a topic you're talking about which is particularly relevant. What are the things that because we can talk about the stuff that people don't want to know, but obviously you're talking about some stuff that's really relevant. What are the topics that gain attention?
We speak to them about the Centrelink impacts on how Centrelink will treat somebody's situation. We talk to them about the need. They usually have a need for somebody to complete a Centrelink assessment form. Because they want to know whether the person is a supported resident or a full fee paying resident.
Gotcha.
We try and turn their thinking around there that says, look, here's some basic rules that you can apply, but we'd rather not complete that form straight away. We'd rather have a chance to talk to the people first before we complete that form.
Right.
And we had and I spoke with a gentleman yesterday. He was actually, he's the power of attorney of an existing client of ours. But had he have gone straight to the facilities and they've said complete this form and he completes the form, it's quite possible the difference between mum having to pay a lump sum accommodation entry or being a supported resident.
Wow. So it's almost like if you don't get the approach the wrong way, you're locked into something which could ultimately cost you a lot of money. Rachel
Lane uses the term, you can't uncook a chook. And it's something that's stuck in my head, and we tell clients that all the time, is that if you can get the information correct beforehand, then you at least don't make the mistakes.
Okay. So it's a little bit like it's almost like going for underwriting to some degree. It's like you got to make sure you underwrite.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because once you're in, it's all there.
Yeah.
That's really useful. I've got another question coming through. Damien, welcome, mate. You know what? We're going to get around to that question in just a second about monetization. So let's, I do want to jump in this one because it's kind of relevant. Damien, I've got that question. I'm going to ask it. Talk about the value proposition. What is the proposition that you communicate to people, and what channels do you kind of use to get, other than obviously the aged care, but what are you saying to the aged care facilities, and also what are the other channels that get traction? Does that make sense? Hello? Are you there? Hey everyone, just to check in, can everybody hear me? If you can, just type yes in the box. I'm still here. Great. I think Damien's still here. Looks like we lost Geoff. So let's give us just give him a second to come back in, hopefully. Just to recap, so far we have asked a little bit of information about how we started with aged care. I think Geoff's talked a little bit about the fact that he has those two service offers, one around assistance and one around advice. He talks about the main differences as being this is about a specific issue. And one thing we might get to is the fact that obviously with this kind of advice, typically it's an issue and then it's going away, as well as the main traction he gets is via relationships with facilities. Now, the other questions I want to sort of ask along the way, which we've got lined up to give people an idea of what we've got coming. We're going to talk a bit about the value proposition. We're going to talk about the service packages and offerings. We might dive a bit deeper into that. We'll talk about pricing if Geoff's willing to share, which I can't imagine why he wouldn't be. As well as we're going to talk about how does he deal with people who ask for free advice. Plus, really great question, Damien, we're going to get around to that, which is how do you monetize it so it's fair? It's fair to clients and it's fair to staff as well. So let's work out where Geoff's gone. Give us 2 seconds. But do me a favor, type in the box, what has been most useful for you so far that we've spoken about? Would love to know. Damien, there's a chat box in there which will enable you to kind of, I guess, not just chat with me, but chat with everybody else as well. So pop over to that and let me know what's been most useful so far. James, would love to hear from you. Carolyn, same deal. Damien, great questions, by the way. Elizabeth, welcome. Shane, you too. So let's just work out where Geoff's got to. I'll just drop him a quick message, but in the meantime, let me know what's working best for you. What's making most sense while I drop Geoff a quick message. It's been the morning of tech challenges, but hopefully we can get Geoff back on.
There we are.
Geoff, you're back.
I'm back.
Welcome.
I don't know what happened there. I think we've lost some internet access, I think.
We did. We were all here waiting for here, but it's cool. I've answered all the questions, so you can go now. I'm joking.
Okay, thanks, mate.
Value proposition. What works?
I think we've narrowed it down. We had a very simple way of trying to explain it to people. So a 4-step process, or a four item process that we talk people through. They need to pay to be there. We talk about the 4 different costs. So we've sort of brought it in is they need to pay to be there, which is all about how they pay for their accommodation.
Yeah.
And we break that down into the lump sum versus the daily payment and the different ways that they can pay that. They need to pay for their care, which is their basic daily care fee. Everybody has to pay $50.16 a day, which is 85% of the full age pension. Not the age pension that they're getting, but the full age pension, and is indexed March and September every year. They've got to pay their share, and in paying their share is in relation to their means tested fee, and that simply means that if they've got care needs, the government will provide funding for their care needs, but if their assets and their income are higher than certain thresholds, then they'll need to pay a proportion of that. So they've got to pay their share of their medical costs. And then we also had they might have to pay for some fancy fare. And the fancy fare is any additional or extra services, things like Foxtel to their room, chef prepared meals, glass of beer or wine with dinner, those types of things.
Perfect. Okay. So I know the whole DONE thing as well. You're very big on explaining things in acronyms and models and 4 steps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That's really useful. No problem, Shane. Let's get a couple of more questions going. Let's talk about pricing. Are you willing to share a bit about how you price this out?
Yeah, look, I've got no problems with that. We have a three-step pricing model. The first step is our essential service. So we have an essentials service where somebody comes in and says to us, this is what we're going to do.
Okay.
We're going to sell mum's home. Mum's going into care. We're going to pay the lump sum bond. We just don't know whether we're going to have the money left over to afford the cash flow.
Yep.
If they want that and they don't want any other advice at all, we currently charge $770 for that.
Okay. And that's how long does that whole piece of advice usually take?
It's a reasonably straightforward piece of advice. We can sort of knock that over in half an hour after the appointment. We have an appointment cost as well. So
in addition to the $750.
In addition to that, yeah.
Okay, cool. And is there more complex levels?
Yeah, there are. When you start to get into the advice structures, depends on how many different strategies that we may want to run. We'll run up to 5 different strategies, and we've done more than 5. But normally we would look at a cost up to $2,700 plus GST, so $2,970 for that.
Cool, and that's then plus your meeting costs.
Usually with our meeting, when they're at that level, we'll normally absorb the meeting cost into that. So we'll charge them, but we'll take that off when we present their advice. Beautiful.
And I'm just going to draw on Damien's question because I think it's a good one. How do you, obviously you monetize it by providing the delineation between the people who want assistance versus those who want advice, as well as those who, they just want the advice, other people who want more.
Yep.
How do you make it fair for clients? Because it's such an emotive space, and you must come across this frequently. So what's your view on this?
So we look at what are the changes that we can make? What are the savings that we can make? Our goal is to try and reduce down the cost of care to the client as much as we can, and to maximise, if they're entitled to any Centrelink benefits, to maximise those benefits. Okay. But sometimes the value is not in monetary terms.
Okay.
The value is in the fact that they can offload a lot of the work that they would normally have to do. We talk about the client that, where, the son was a doctor in Sydney. The thing was the daughter lived in Brisbane, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the time. They just did not have the time. So, when we said to them, look, we will take over all of the paperwork, we will take over, once you've got mum settled in a facility, we'll help you from there. Yeah. They said, yeah, fine.
Love it. So it's reducing cost, maximizing the benefits, and then offloading the work as well, which I think is probably the bigger at the end of it.
Yeah.
Just a bit of feedback for you. While you were away, I sort of asked people what was most useful so far. Shane said it's what's been most useful is the fact that you know your niche and you've built the business around it. James said the most useful thing he's taken from it is that there's a whole avenue about chatting to facilities there. Damien, the comment he made is that it seems like we all like to help people, and that is, that is a common thing between most good advisors I know. That fundamentally they love that feeling of people walking out of the office, having got more out of it than they walked in. That's the satisfaction he gets as well.
I made the comment yesterday to one of our staff members that we're not a benevolent society.
Yeah.
We do have to make money. We have to make profit. But to me, it's not the key. It's my drive is to be able to help people. As long as that I'm not doing that at a loss.
Yeah.
That's my drive. I'd rather help people.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. You can help a bunch of people, but if your business isn't going to be around to help them more people, then it's kind of, I think that's really smart. Let me ask 2 more questions, and happy to kind of take more as they come. And then we're just going to sort of flip over to you a bit more. But there's a question I wanted to ask, which came up from Shane, which I think is a really good one. How do you deal with people who are provided with free advice from people like, FIS officers, hospital social workers, and other staff? How do you deal with that?
Look, it depends. I usually, if people say, look, I can get this for free, and my staff are great at, when we tell them that there's a cost for the appointment.
Yeah.
And my staff say, the people will come back to them and say, well, we can get this, we can go to Centrelink and it doesn't cost us anything. And my staff go, okay.
I love it.
That's fine. And the basis I've said to them is, if somebody's not prepared to pay a nominal amount for an appointment, they're not going to pay, a couple of $1,000 for advice. So it's a great, I call it a culling process. And it simply says that, we're confident in the advice that we provide adds value.
Yeah.
We show where that value is added. And if people want to get free advice usually helps them proportionate to the amount that they pay.
Yeah, it's worth exactly what you paid for it. Yeah. It's that we've had this conversation a number of different times about everybody focuses on the price thing, but there's three main value propositions. One's price, quality, and convenience. And that old saying, which is if you think we're expensive, try implementing some of the advice you can get for free, and then you'll find out how much that's going to cost you.
I've seen it, Stu, firsthand, and I've seen people. Yeah. I always tell the story if somebody talks about the fact that I'm usually the best one is I'm in the industry. I actually had I had four sisters sitting around my boardroom table.
Yeah.
And the eldest was the driver, which is normally the case.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm an aged care nurse. I went, great. And I said, what are your thoughts then? Before we get started, what are your thoughts then? She said, well, what I was thinking we would do is we would sell Mum's home, which is worth about $1 million.
Yeah.
Each of us would take 250,000 of that. Therefore, Mum's got no money left, and she becomes a fully supported resident, and the government will pay all of her aged care costs. And I said, yep. Do all of you agree with that? And they all said, yeah, that all sounds great. I said, now let me explain deprivation of assets to you and what that means. And they were astonished. They actually thought that they could quite reasonably sell Mum's home and just give the money to themselves and not have to worry about it. So
I want to raise this because this is one of your skills, and I think it's a great skill to have, which is rather than try and jump in and try and solve people's problem there and then and tell them that one. You have great at asking the questions to your point, allowing them to get to a point, and then you ask what I call the killer question. It's just find the thread and pull it, and at that point they're going, right, you know more than I do, and it's such a great skill you've got.
That's the reason I do it. I let them think that they know, and look, sometimes they do. I've come across people that have got a really good understanding of it, and I'll actually usually say to them, look, I really don't think we can add any value to it. I don't think that we know our advice. You've got a handle on this. You don't need to offload it to anybody. If you're comfortable and you think that you can afford the cost of care, I have no issue with what you're doing.
And I don't know if you've had the experience, but there's two things happen when you say to somebody, I don't think you need my help. I think you need someone else. Firstly, you feel really good about it because you feel like you're getting closer and closer to what you want to get. But strangely, you often end up speaking to that person again, and it's not always in relation to them. It's often in relation to someone else.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful thing to do if you can get in the habit of, doing it regularly. So a couple more questions. Which one am I going to ask first? Let me ask this one first. This is from Carolyn. Geoff mentioned there are two sides to the aged care piece. There's the advice and the assistance. Is that right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the cost $27.90. Is that the assistance part? Or is that the advice?
That's the advice.
Okay. Yeah. Are you willing to give us a little bit of insight into how the assistance works?
Okay. Our platinum package, the way that we price this, and by the way, I will put my hand up and say, I've never had an original idea in my life. I steal everything that I possibly can. So a warning out there to all of you that if you ever get on a chat with Stu, I'm writing copious notes and taking as much from it as I can.
And I want to be clear that I didn't make a lot of this stuff up. I just pull it together and mash it together.
Plagiarism is the highest form of flattery in my book. And
you're like an artist.
Yeah. And so I'm quite happy to do that. I got all of my ideas from a colleague of mine in Victoria. And I rewarded him with a lovely bottle of bourbon for the use of his material.
Yeah.
What we actually look at is that we priced our advice section and then we had add-ons. So basically what we said is that if we want us to complete the Centrelink assessment form, we'll add something to that. We'll add a price to that as well. If you want us to negotiate with the facility on how you can pay the fees, we'll do that as well. You want us to check the invoices for the first 3 months and they come in to make sure that you're being charged correctly, we'll do that as well. And there was an additional cost for this stuff. One of the key things that I took from him was a lifetime review. and said, look, we are prepared for a one-off fee to review mum's situation every year to make sure that nothing has changed in the advice world, the economic world, the budget, whatever it might be, that's going to affect mum's situation. And we charge a flat fee for that.
Okay.
A lot of people would look at that and go, you're crazy. What are you doing that for? Because we get in front of the beneficiaries every year.
Right.
And it's purely a business building proposition.
Perfect. Hopefully that answers.
So basically with that, we add all those things to the advice cost, and then we've discounted that back to a package, which we call our platinum package. Again, we don't have any real ideas. We've called our platinum package, and at the moment, it is one of our most popular offerings.
That's interesting. What do you put that down to?
The attitude of, this is all too hard. Can you guys do it for me? And we go, yeah, sure.
There is definitely power in having options out there. I think it's always important to recommend something.
Yeah.
But it's always good to have something which is, this is expensive, but we'll do it all for you. This is one where you'll, do it yourself, and there's a midpoint. But the where they sit in relation to each other is, I think, really important. As opposed
I don't know who I got that idea from.
I don't know where that came from. I'm pretty sure I didn't make it up either. Mate, this has been super useful. Shane's got one.
Yeah.
He says he loves the lifetime review idea.
Yep.
He also really likes your approach, which I'm not surprised. How do you price that?
Yeah, it was like a rabbit out of a hat, mate. We just pulled a number out. It was $990. We charge $990 because it's not $1,000. When I was at school, I worked in a supermarket, and I did a lot of work in the fruit and veg section. I remember asking the fruiterer one day, why do we price the apples at $1.99 a kilo and not $2? And he said, because they're not $2.
Yeah.
He said, people will see the number in front.
It's interesting because that used to be $1.99, and now if you look online, for example, a lot of courses are priced at $9.47.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the evolution that sort of stuff is. I think we've kind of answered that. There was a question around, what are the bits and pieces in your service offer, but I think we've touched on that. Is there anything else in there that you do in terms of, servicing clients, maintaining contact that you think is really good?
Look, I don't think there's anything that nobody else has probably tried. It's just a case, I spend a lot of money on aged care. Having a full-time resource that dedicated just to aged care is costly, but it's my commitment. I see it as my commitment to the strategy, my commitment to the service offer, and so far it's working quite well. Perfect.
Hey, look, that's all the questions I wanted to ask, mate. I've really enjoyed this conversation. My apologies for the late start and all that stuff, but it's been really worth sort of putting it together. I guess I wanted to, if anybody's got any questions, pop it in. No problem. Shane says he loved it. He's really interested in it. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. I think he said earlier, Shane said he loved that answer. I think Damien earlier mentioned that he agrees 100% with some of the things you were saying. James again said he's really got some benefit out of how to demonstrate and quantify the value of your advice to client. I'm thinking that's feedback. Mate, any other feedback people have got, Carolyn, Elizabeth, pop it in the box. But in the meantime, what I'd like you to do is sort of tell us, what are you doing now? What are you focused on? And, if there's one thing that you want advisors to do more of in this space, what would it be?
I think it's more to do with, one of the things that we don't realise is around about 80% of aged care is not provided by aged care facilities. It's people in their homes, or it's people in a retirement village, or it's people in a unit. So there's a wait. There's currently a 14-month wait for the highest level home care package. So it's talking to your retiree clients about, knowing that they're going to need some money. The highest level, a level 4 home care package from the government is worth about $48,000.
Okay.
Now, if you can't get that for 14 months, and you need that care, you're going to need to fund that yourself.
Gotcha.
So it's knowing those types of things and knowing what you can get. I think it's also knowing that aged care and retirement living are starting to meld together. Retirement villages are now offering in-home care packages to their residents. So it's getting yourself trained in that area, getting yourself comfortable in that area, and knowing that there's a large demographic. Our baby boomers are moving into that. And one of the things that we find is that they make the decision too late. My mum made the decision too late. Mum made the decision to move into a retirement village, and we had I spoke to her on the Friday. We had a meeting planned the following Tuesday to take her down and to start the process. And she passed away on the Saturday.
Oh,
and that whole thing to me says that we should be talking to retirement villages not in our 80s but in our 60s, and seeing whether that's the lifestyle that we want. Remember, it's a lifestyle. So
is the nature of retirement villages changing significantly, or do you think there's still a long way to go?
I think there's a long way to go. Some of the bigger providers are now starting to be more flexible in the way they're pricing. They're offering more services, all those things, but we've got a long way to go there.
Did you see the one in Holland that they trialed, which is specifically for clients who have Alzheimer's? And the whole retirement village it's open planned, but it's done like the 70s. The TV's the 70s, the movies is the 70s. The radio's the 70s. Yeah, and you can't actually leave, but there's no walls.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting that, we're seeing a lot of stuff with people living on boats as well, which is a big one, right?
Yeah. I think the other one is the best thing I've seen is the aged care facility right next door to the childcare centre.
I love that.
There's just a big perspex wall, and they can see each other. Like the aged care residents can see the kids, playing.
Yeah.
And you just go, wow, they would love that.
While you were thinking, I had a bit of a funny thought, which is all you got to do is put the tiger enclosure next to the kids with the perspex wall, and you're keeping everyone happy, right?
Yeah, pandas,
panda bears. There you go.
Pandas.
Mate, if people are really interested in this and they want to find out more, or alternatively, if they have clients that or when they're adult children's clients, but they know that they've got this problem and they could probably do with having this conversation, how can they get information from you, get in contact? What's the best way of connecting?
Mate, they can come through Dome Financial, through the website. They can, by all means, Google us and give me a call. I'm really happy to help advisors where I can. I don't see it as competition. There's enough people out there for all of us to talk to.
Yeah.
If you're an advisor out there and this is not your specialty, this is not something that gets you excited, but you want some expertise, I'm more than happy to come and sit in your office, if it can help, or virtually sit in your office and answer questions for you.
And if you've got a lot of you're getting questions about this, and someone wants to refer people through, what's your process for making speaking to new clients?
Okay, in speaking to your clients, what we do is that we arrange an initial appointment. If it's coming from an advisor, I will normally offer the advisor to either come along with their clients, or I'll go to their office and sit in their office and do the appointment in them. From an advisor, it's your client, not my client. I'm a specialist. Yeah. And all I'm doing is I'm providing some expertise that maybe you don't have or you don't want to have. So.
Well, that's the future is specialisation. There's actually no doubt about that. And it's DomeFG?
DomeFG.com.au.
Perfect. Yeah. Mate, that was incredible. Any final words or anything you want to put out there?
There's no new ideas. just keep slugging away at it. But I love it. I would prefer to work in this sector. And I said that if I won one of those massive big Powerball lotteries, I reckon that I would provide this pro bono because I enjoy it so much.
Mate, firstly, it's just been a pleasure working with you and watching you grab things and run with them. And even when things have got tough, you've still gone, I'm going to do it. And I think but it's been a pleasure to watch you because you're so passionate about this particular area. And you're talking about it online or jumping in front of a room, and that moment you get that look in your eye and you start to realize, actually, this is coming from a place of that you really, really believe in this, and you really have some strong views about, what people should be doing. That's why it's a pleasure to see you sort of talking about it.
Thanks, mate.
Mate, have a great day. Thanks to everybody who came. Carolyn, Damien, Elizabeth, James, Shane. If you want to make contact or speak to Geoff about anything, go to the website, domefg.com.au, pop an email through. That'll be picked up by his very capable team who'll give you some help. But what's on for the rest of the day, Geoff?
Mate, I have got, as I did mention to you, that we've just transitioned to Xplan from Coin. I'm going to go searching for the documents I created earlier this week because I can't find them. They're there somewhere.
If anybody out there is a Xplan specialist, particularly when it comes to finding documents that you put into the system, you please
get in contact.
Yeah, drop an email to Geoff because he could really do with just the scaling the wall. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you so much. I'm going to go and pack this stuff away. I'm going to go and see if I can find out what the heck happened earlier on with the room. And other than that, I'm going to hit the slopes. But,
so get on the slopes, mate, and enjoy yourself.
They're just out the window. You obviously can't see them, but it looks like it might be snowing. So, everybody, thanks very much for coming. Geoff, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Geoff.
And, I'll speak to you later. Take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye, mate.